Hi, everyone. We're doing something a little different today. We want to get your feedback on how it goes. We're going to have a frank and earthy conversation, a little bit of a peek behind the scenes, behind the curtain, if you will, with some of our internal consultants and the work that we do to support teams across campus and higher ed. So today, my guest is
Steven Savini. Hi, Tony.
Hey. And of course, I'm Antonio Nava. We both work with operational strategic initiatives. I actually have a theater undergraduate degree. What was your undergrad?
Yeah, so I studied linguistics here at UC San Diego, specifically linguistics with an emphasis on Spanish, so it was called language studies.
Okay.
And that degree was half linguistics, and then I learned like how linguistics applies to the Spanish language, and then learned a lot of like Spanish literature, Spanish or Latin American history, and ended up taking some other random classes. Like I took the full set of Italian for whatever reason.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about the kind of work that you do right now.
Yeah, so I mean, working with operational strategic initiatives, it really depends day to day, like working through 3 to 4 different projects at a time. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing is revolved around the AI system on campus, Triton GPT, and helping the campus go through its transformation with AI technologies and help it move towards, kind of through this new wave of AI.
Sure.
And then also I do a lot of work on like Lean Six Sigma projects, trying to, just help people do their best work.
Yeah. So pretend like I'm somebody who doesn't know about OSI, who has a concept of what it means to be a project, right? When you say I do projects related to AI and that sort of thing, like what are the kinds of things that you're doing in your day to day? Like what does it actually look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of meetings, a lot of meetings and a lot of emails. I think in the day-to-day, we just do a lot of communications, via email, via, Zoom meetings. We're constantly getting information from, different sources and trying to, one, understand it all and how how they all kind of connect and what role that they have in helping the university, operate as a university. And then also mirroring it with or adding to it our understanding of how the university operates and, using that knowledge to either pass that on to someone else who needs that information or helping to solve problems or, reporting back to leadership.
But let's say I'm somebody who, for example, if I were somebody who studied project management, right, I would think, okay, this person is responsible for a decision that's been made already and us tracking towards the launch of that. So I've got a timeline, a budget, I've got scope, right? Having worked in OSI, I know that that's not exactly what we do, right? We're not project managers in that sense a lot of the time. There's something a little bit different in this organizational consultant space. So if I were to have that mindset, sort of a project management approach, how would you say this is different, the kind of work that we do as consultants?
Like how project management is different from being a consultant?
Yeah. So we're project managers, right? We do the kinds of things that project managers do. But if I were, let's say I'm a leader and I'm putting together this team that's going to launch a service or a software or something, I might have a product manager, product owner. I might have a project manager who's tracking towards XYZ things. And then I might also reach out to OSI or a similar consulting group and say, oh, I actually need somebody to help me through some of this change management elements or some of the lean elements or like we're not at OSI, to my understanding, you can tell me if you don't think this is the case. Like folks don't necessarily reach out to us and they say, we have a solution in mind. You help us track to that solution, right? It's a little bit different. Yeah,
no, it's a good point. I think we jump into a lot of really ambiguous situations sometimes. A lot of times we're coming in where the skills that we have are pretty unique, I think. We can kind of do... It's going to sound pretentious, but we can do like a lot of things. We have a lot of really unique skill sets based off of, the backgrounds that some of our consultants have, some of our team members have, and we also we're not afraid to, or how do I put this? We're really comfortable going in with like the unknown. So even if we didn't have anyone who had a change management background, we would study up on change management theory.
Sure.
We'd use our experiences working on other projects. We may ask maybe some of our more experienced team members like, hey, do you have an example of 5 years ago when you did a similar project? How did you go through it? And we can really translate that into.
So
I think I'm missing the question.
No, you're good. You're good. You said something though that I thought was interesting. You said we're really comfortable doing this thing or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not been my experience. Personally, I'm always scared. Go into a project and I'm always like, it doesn't matter what it could be something I've done a bunch of times before, maybe something I've never seen before. There's always a sense of trepidation of like, this could go sideways and everyone's going to blame me, right? The way that I think of the question that I kind of posed to you of like, how are we different than what a person might think of a project manager is sort of speaks to what you were talking about, where there's a little bit more ambiguity. There's not a set solution and we're driving towards the rollout of that solution.
Yeah.
We're often pulled into spaces or invited into spaces where there isn't an answer yet.
Yeah.
And we're navigating those conversations. We're helping people to understand kind of the process and the needs and the pain points and trying to pull all those voices together so that maybe the group can come together and find whatever the potential way forward is going to be, right?
Yeah.
And a project manager might be a person who then is our partner throughout that, but then grabs onto whatever those ideas are from the teams and then rolls them out. But getting to what you mentioned about we're comfortable going into that space. And my sense of like I'm always scared.
Yeah.
In some sense. But
You don't show it.
it's a good mask. Right?
Yeah.
It's my theater background.
Yeah, exactly. It's your theater degree.
But like there's this this idea that I'm scared, and some of that comes from the love that I have for wanting these folks to succeed. And the other part of it comes from this feeling like I'm not an expert in that topic or space.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the question in a really roundabout way of like, do you think that the things that we do are unique in the sense that people couldn't learn how to do them? Or, because I feel like personally, I feel like it's something you could train up. It's a muscle that we've developed. What are your thoughts on that?
So you're asking if people like not so much of like our I don't think any of the work that we're doing is it's not highly technical work. Like I don't need to go to school for several years to learn how to be a consultant. I think it's just we have the opportunity, I think, in OSI to we don't have day-to-day tasks that we're assigned to do to keep the university afloat, but we're because of that we have I'm trying to let me
see. So where my head's at is like we have this perceived set of unique skills, and maybe they are unique skills, and maybe they're more finely tuned, but that doesn't mean that they're unique and intangible in the sense that other people couldn't develop them as well.
Yeah.
Right. We're called in as good partners on these processes and projects because we've been in those spaces more frequently.
Yeah.
But a lot of what we do is really reading the room, understanding people, trying to capture those stories, right? And for me, a lot of my journey from like theater degree to like project management and process improvement has been that sort of understanding the story, the narrative, the drama, and then highlighting that for folks to find some way for forward motion, right? What about you? Like in terms of your journey from your undergraduate background to today, like how did your journey find you here?
Yeah. I mean, it's gone through many iterations. I think, when I graduated from UCSD, I took a year to teach English in Spain, and had a really great time, but came back and was, trying to look for any kind of work in San Diego. And when I was a student at UCSD, I actually worked in the mailroom as a student. And so, that was like the first thing that came to my mind. And fortunately there was an opening. So, I worked in the mailroom delivering packages across campus for... Which
is funny because it's like our simulation for the Yellow Bell.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Speaking of like continuous improvement and Lean Six Sigma and processes, like working at Mail was really fun for... One of the fun parts about working at Mail was that you were actually able to invent your own processes like on the spot. So it was like I have all of these like letters. Sorry,
it's less rigid. Like you're kind of like able to like, hey, I think this could work better this way. Let's do it this way and try it out.
Well, not even that. It's like it's like mini processes. So like you have this tub of mail, and sometimes you needed to split it into 2 piles. Sometimes you need to split it into like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I'm gonna put the mail that I need to sort here. and then I'm going to put one box here. This box means this mail code. This box means that mail code. And then you kind of learn like different, like you're literally just inventing a process like to achieve a goal like right there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you might make some changes. You're like, oh my God, like what? I'm getting a lot of mail for this mail code, but the box is like so far away. I need to move the box closer because I know I'm going to be using that box.
You started finding yourself doing lean things without knowing that that's what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've actually, after mail, I went to still stayed within IPPS, Integrated Procure-to-Pay Solutions on campus, and I worked first as like a customer service rep, like answering questions about the travel system, helped support UCSD through the transition to the new travel system Concur, and then ended up working as what's called here at UCSD a business systems analyst, kind of like a quasi product manager for UCSD's payee management system. And so even when I was working at, answering tickets and working on the pay management system during like rush times, during student move-in in the fall, they always asked for volunteers. So I would go back and sort mail. And as I got my yellow belt and my green belt, I was literally like, oh my gosh, like this is process. This is like a, process improvement principles like right here. And it was fun too because usually when we work on those kinds of projects, it's all digital. But this is, you get to go back to kind of like the physical roots of Lean Six Sigma, which is always a little bit interesting when we end up teaching that class because we're trying to, give the physical example of process improvement, but most of the stuff that we do is digital.
Right. Yeah, the training you're saying, we give them hands-on experiences and examples and hope that sort of transcends into the digital things that they find themselves doing.
But when we teach those classes, we're constantly trying to translate the concepts into what that means into the digital world.
Yeah. So the purpose and the arc of that question was like, every once in a while I get asked almost directedly, like, I looked at your bio and theater degree, huh?
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And I think that comes from a place where, folks sometimes approach us and they say, well, what kinds of skills or training should I do if I wanted to do similar kinds of work? And yes, 100% you should do like your PMP certification or get an MBA or do Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. There's a number of things that formally you can do. But I've also been asked, and I've had this conversation in a couple other circles where like the biggest skill that I think internal consultants, maybe even just consultants in general, should develop is the soft skill.
Yeah.
Like being able to read the room, being able to understand people, being able to like not make assumptions as much as possible. What would you add to that list? What are some other skills, soft skills maybe?
I mean, just being able to, again, create relationships. And being seen as someone who's trustworthy, like very, very quickly. Because I think one of the things with consulting is we're not working with the same people all the time. We're constantly meeting new people, or hey, we worked with this person 6 months ago, and they don't know who we are. Like they know that we're fellow UCSD employees, but that's pretty much it. And so it's really important for us to build instant trust with people, just simply because sometimes we have a few more difficult conversations, or at least more complex conversations of like, hey, we're recommending that you make this change or that change, and being able to have people trust us is
how do you build trust? How do you because we all come with our own brand and our approach, and that's not something that I've seen in any formal training.
That is not in any formal training.
So maybe this is something audiences you can take away now. How do you, Steven Savini, quickly build trust?
I just try to be personable. Like I try to be someone who's outgoing. I'm actually an introvert. No one believes that. Everyone says I'm an extrovert. It's not true. But really just trying to be personable, trying to be a little bit more relaxed, and honestly just trying to, I don't know. I try not to lie. Like I try not to.
Okay.
I don't know how to say it, but like
I'll edit that. Try not to lie.
Try not to lie. That's a very important one.
Be honest is another way to say that.
I think it's just constantly proving to people that you're there on their team. You're not judging them. Being very honest and straight up with people sometimes, even if it's telling them stuff you don't want to hear. I think there's kind of a baseline trust. I think, within UCSD, I think we're fortunate enough to work in a pretty healthy work environment, more or less. And so I think there's a baseline level of trust that people have for other UCSD employees. And I think that's the first, I guess that's the first one, right? Like letting people know who we are and that we're not some external consultants who are coming in, just for money, or, we're going to, sometimes external consultants, they just kind of come in and they do the job, or they do either, a terrible job, or they don't really care too much, and then they get paid, and then they like put their hands up,
There's this perception that they're there,
Yeah.
they do whatever it is, and they don't really care about what happens afterwards. Whereas internal consultants,
Yeah,
like,
we're one of you.
Yeah, exactly.
And like we're not going anywhere. Like if things don't go well, like you know where to find us.
you're gonna keep seeing us.
Yeah, you're gonna keep seeing us. And then I think I've had some more difficult kind of conversations lately with some stakeholders, and I think for me it's just making sure that I'm doing right by them, and telling them, like, not just telling them I'm going to do right by them, but showing them and making adjustments, and following through on my word, and just honestly just having a history of, it's like once you work with someone one or two times, you kind of gain that rapport, and just having a history of constantly being someone who shows up and performs, does what they say they're going to do, doesn't make anyone's work harder. I think we have it, like I said, we have a baseline level of trust, but once you show that off to people one or two times, it's really easy to, I feel like it's really easy to continue those, making those relationships and make them long lasting and stronger. And chances are you're going to be working with them on another project, or you'll be working with them on multiple projects at the same time, which is another thing that we end up doing.
Yeah. For me, like I 100% resonate with that idea of building trust quickly, being personable.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about this idea of trust is not just, that I say what I do what I do what I say I'm going to do, right? But also that if you tell me something, that I'm not going to go immediately and tell other teams, right?
That's a big one too.
The conversations that we have are here, right? And I might still have conversations with OSI about what we talked about, but I'm going to synthesize it, right? Even within our teams, we're like, I'm having difficulty with this scenario. Can you help me navigate XYZ? And we're not, hopefully all the relationships that we build, they know that we have their best interests at heart. And I know that one thing that I find myself doing, and maybe not consciously, is when I partner with the team, especially if it's a project that's going to go for weeks or that sort of thing, I find myself saying we a lot, like, oh, we need to do this, and we need to, oh, this wouldn't it be great if we could, and then I find myself realizing that I'm not a person who, like, I don't have a hand in this process, but I feel hopefully like a part of the family, and I try to feel like a house guest, if you will, a good house guest. Yeah,
it's funny that we're you asked me that question, and it's hard for me to answer, just because like that's just how I operate. Like that's just like who, like for me, it's not I'm not intentionally trying to build trust. That's like the end result, but like I'm just trying to be like, I'm just trying to be helpful. I'm just trying to be like a good person, and I understand like everyone's working so hard, and I don't want to like I'm not the person who's gonna like come in and like try to ruin that.
And that's the thing, is you're a magical character. I'll tell you that.
Oh, thanks, Tony.
And I think what I hope that people will get out of this is, is making some of those things that maybe we do intrinsically or because of our character or whatever, like making them visible so that other folks, like, so we can put a name on it, right? This idea of trust, like it's a nebulous concept until you actually say, okay, well, how do you build trust? We say things like when we're embedded with a team, we make sure that we're honest. We make sure that we have follow through. We make sure that we're having confidential spaces and conversations and synthesizing information in other spaces, that sort of thing. These are the concrete behaviors that we have leveraged to build confidence, even if we didn't learn it in a class and formally go do that, right? That sort of thing.
I'm curious, Tony. I want to ask a similar question to you, because I feel like
that's not what we're about here. We're not.
Oh, is it? Were you interviewing me already?
Go ahead.
No, I feel like your background, your theater background, and your theater background is really almost directly contributed to, I think, the special sauce that you bring both OSI and the university. And I'm curious to see, like, do you feel like your theater background has kind of is it just stuff that you've learned in undergrad, or what have you kind of developed since you either joined OSI or since you kind of was released out from UCSD into the real world, that's kind of helped you as a consultant?
So similarly, after graduating, I had some part-time jobs. I worked at Pizza Hut for far too long, for example. trying to get into the grown-up workspace. I worked in registrar for a while, very much data entry driven, and I found myself really curious about what happens before and what happens after my process, and kind of like, what are these gears, and where does the information go, and what happens if I do this wrong, and that sort of thing, and really getting interested in the human side of the things that we were doing. Like, this information goes somewhere, and it affects somebody else's day, and I started building those relationships with folks, and I think only in retrospect did I realize that what I was doing is I was process mapping, and I was doing, stakeholder engagement, and I was looking upstream and downstream at, impacts of defects or whatever. Like, I didn't have the formal language around it, but it was a curiosity of mine. And part of what I tried to do with that information, because I was going to people and asking them these, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Is I wanted to make sure that that wasn't just information that I held on to, but that I could then disseminate to others, because I was finding a whole lot of benefit for myself in doing this sort of informal process mapping and information gathering. I found that I was happier where I was. I found that I felt more engaged. I found that I felt more connected to the mission of the institution, and I felt more like I could change it or impact it. So I felt like I could do something about the direction of the university, and that lit me up, and I wanted to share that with other people. So I went back to my theater background and said, how can I encapsulate these stories that I'm gathering to then share with other people? And that's kind of eventually how I got pulled over to UC San Diego, as this team OSI does similar kinds of things. And they were like, oh, this would be, we got this training. And I think I've lost the crux of your question. Tell me again what it was.
No,
I do this during interviews
I was thinking about the question I just asked, and it was very much like, it was like a two-parter. But it sounds to me like, kind of process, like with process improvement, like you kind of found your purpose. Is that an accurate statement?
I'm really happy helping people. I get lit up when I see other people lit up. So for me, it's about finding opportunities. And a lot of times when we're asked to partner with a team, it's because they're in a really scary spot.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do next, and they don't know how this process is going to get any better, if it even can. And I've felt that way.
Yeah.
And I'm not, when I go to partner with the team, it's not like I'm here and it's going to all be better, but it's like, I'm here, and while I'm here, I'm going to do anything I can to help us. See, and I just did it right now. Help us as a team, me embedded in with your team or whatever, to help us all collectively find a better way to be able to go home at the end of the day and feel connected to what we're doing, to feel like the work that we did was value add, in terms of moving the ball forward, and the customers, the folks that we're serving, find benefit in the work that we're doing. Like, that just lights me up, and I'm blessed to be in a role where that gets to be my day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't
and
know.
it's really wonderful too, being part of a university campus, because I feel like we see our work like. Because we work with the entire university, and again, not just like one like little spot like I was in procurement, which procurement does touch all of the university, but again is not the breadth isn't as wide as what the work that we do at OSI. But being able to just go on campus and being like, okay, like we support these students, like being able to help achieve their dreams, or help for a lot of them get social mobility, or help them set them up for a successful life. Yesterday I went to. Just randomly went to the undergrad like research expo, and it was just really cool to be in there and seeing all the students with. I didn't understand anything on the posters, by the way.
Yeah.
Non-sciencey, non-STEM backgrounds represent.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't understand anything, but it was just really cool being in there with all those like undergrad students and seeing like, hey, like the work that we do is indirectly supporting the entire campus and helping them potentially get a life-changing job offer, or making their start within the world.
And that's where I think the idea of connecting those stories really makes it so that I can connect to the mission and vision, right?
Yeah.
There's a story of a janitor in a hospital setting, and I heard this during a lean conference, I think. But the story of this janitor, and the janitor just really was the best janitor they could be. Like, this was where they were, and they were like, I'm gonna rock it while I'm here. And in interviewing and talking to this person, they were like, what drives you? And the janitor said, well, the better I do this, right? The more clean the space is, the more maintained it is, or whatever, the doctors can work in that space, and the patients will be healthy, and like lives can be saved.
Yeah.
So I'm mopping the floor, but this could save lives, right? This sort of like that being able to see those layers. And sometimes when I talk to people about their process, it's like, more or less what you're doing. And you kind of have a sense of like, if you were to go step forward or back from where you are, you kind of have a sense of what that is. But if you go another one step out and 2 and 3 and 4 further steps away, it's a black box. You have no idea how you're connected to the different parts of the institution, but we all are, right? It's a university, right? That comes from sort of the core of like the word universe or universal, where it's all one thing, even though there's so many different things. And it's interesting because we're like our own little city, in that we have, a police department, and we have medical services, and we have financial services,
Fire
and
department
we have
now.
food.
Fire department was the last one for us to be an actual city.
We have all the things that it takes to be this big complex organism, and it's funny that we're this university, but our language and our processes and sometimes the way that we connect with that is not universal. Right. And that's the theater side of me who goes, like, I can see as an audience member where all these things are, but the individual actors and the player, the characters in the story, they don't see how their action is impacting the death of the king or whatever the thing is, right?
I totally agree. And like, even think about like what you do, like your routine to get to UCSD. Like, I drive to UCSD, I park in the parking lot, I pay for parking, that's a whole...
You pay for parking?
Yeah. That's a whole system, right? And there's employees that are there to actually support that. And then I have the fob that I use to get into the door. And that was a whole process of getting that set up and making sure it works. Then I go and I open my laptop, which is a whole process to make sure that I have a laptop in front of me. I log on, and there's so many people, it's... As you go through the day, it's like, it's easy, because it's your routine, it's easy, I think, to forget about that. But really, just to get me logged on, like it does take a village.
I have this analogy where like some teams are like a well-oiled engine, right? Like all the pistons need to fire, all the belts, everything needs to work in a certain way, or the car will not go forward, right? Some teams are like that. Other teams, or sometimes people individually, they feel like every person on the team is a motorcycle. Like this person has their tasks or whatever, and they can go off and ride on the roads or whatever as a motorcycle would, and irrespective of everything else that's going on. Whereas there's this concept of like, even if you feel like a motorcycle, even if you feel like your work can go out or whatever, wouldn't we be better served as a motorcycle club? I don't want to use the word gang.
No,
but if we came
cut that
together,
out.
if we came together as UCSD's Angels or something, and we could, accomplish greater things. Together, right? Even if we were this idea of we're our own motorcycles, like when we come together, we can draft off the wind of each other, and we can learn from each other, and we can back each other up. And I really think that's my vision. What I hope other people's vision would be too, for what we could be as a university. So, well, anything else you wanted to share about your journey, or about like the skills that you think internal consultants should carry with them?
I think just one thing that I have always tried to do is work hard, and it's cliche. And at OSI, we don't like cliches.
That's not been my experience with you.
No, but
he's just saying that because we're recording.
I'm working hard, I promise. No.
Annual reviews are coming up. That's why he's saying it right now.
Exactly, I worked hard this year. No. It's really just, I think we talked about caring and really being invested in your work, and honestly just trying hard, and just trying to pick up concepts and learn as quickly as I could, try to think about what's best for the people that I'm serving, whether it's as consultants, the different sponsors or different people that we're working with, or even in IPPS when I was just trying to help out my teammates, or trying to help out customers that I was answering cases for. I think just putting a lot of effort in, and also just thinking about what's best for everyone, what's best for the person that you're trying to help, it's gotten me pretty far. And that's the mentality that I also take on, when I'm working through, different projects and working on different things at OSI.
Yeah. I think for me, it's been a balance of that, of like, bring your best self to work, and also remember that you are more than the work that you do, right? Like not just you, Steven, and me, Tony, but we have families or friends, and we have hobbies, we have all these things that make us who we are. Our jobs don't make us who we are, right? They're a part of what we're doing right now with our time and our lives and our energy, and while we're spending this valuable resource away from our families, perhaps on any task, like we should we should know that that's valuable and that we should make the most of that time, and at the same time acknowledge that we're more than that. And I think if I acknowledge that for me, then the next step is to acknowledge that for you and for anyone else that I come in contact with, because then it opens up this idea that if there's a process conflict, it's not because this other person is just trying to fight me and whatever this thing is, but like that they're balancing a whole bunch of different struggles and that they have things that are happening in their lives as well. And so a big thing for me has always been just acknowledging everyone's humanity throughout everything, and hearing their stories, not just like telling here's the defects and here's the process or here's whatever, but let me hear your story. Let me collect that. Let me grow from that. And if that person's willing, I can help share my story or the story of somebody else that's affecting them.
Yeah,
So.
I was literally just about to say everyone has a story, and they're all different and they're all unique. The last thing I wanted to ask you, Tony, was you went to UCSD, like you were a student here. Yep. How do you feel about how has your relationship changed with the university? Transitioning from a student. I know you went away for a while to work at different universities and then came back.
I was a trader for a short while. Yeah.
Sorry,
I was a trader for a short while.
How do you?
Necessity.
Well, you didn't work at like UCLA, so you're good now.
Okay.
No, we love you, UCLA.
I'll fix that in post.
Yeah. How's your relationship changed from being an undergrad and besides the fact that like there's like 5 new buildings and everything is different, but how's your relationship with the university like evolved, I guess would be the better word, as you've gone from being an undergrad student to now being a consultant here?
When I was a student here, I felt like I wanted to go to every single building. We talked about this earlier today. I would actively seek out buildings I had not entered yet, and I would enter and just wander the halls out of curiosity of like, what happens in this space? And it was nebulous. So I think one of the ways that my relationship has changed with the institution is now, especially where I sit in OSI, I know a lot more now about what some of these different buildings are doing.
Yeah.
And not just from a teaching standpoint, a learning standpoint, but like all of the different arms that make that possible. So it's interesting. I was a customer, if you will, as a student of what the university is and does, and now I'm on the other side of that. So it's interesting seeing again behind the curtain and all the things that happen and what makes learning possible and research possible. And that's everything from, as I mentioned, the janitorial staff to the housing and dining at all levels, to the administrative staff, to the financial, to the police and fire department. Like all of that is necessary for folks to have the experience that I had as a student, which was amazing. And I'm not just saying that, right? Because but because I came away from that experience as a student feeling like much more engaged in the world around me and much more like ready to take on the world. And as I mentioned, even though I was at Pizza Hut for far too long, by no fault of the institutions, it was 2008 and the market was doing really well at the time. So, and it is what it is. But no, I would say that's maybe the biggest part of it is that, at the time I felt like it was all just magical. Maybe the best analogy is at the time I was a kid in Disneyland, and now I'm a grown up and I get to see like the animatronics or whatever that are behind the scenes, or the they've turned on all the lights and I can see, oh, that's how that works and this is how that works. It's different, but it's cool. I mean, I'm in it. So
yeah, I feel the exact same way. Like I feel like looking back on when I was an undergrad at UCSD, like I feel like I only knew like 5% of what I know now, and I even feel like now I only know like 35% of the entire universe, like because it's such a big, like we were just talking about, it's such a big operation, and I mean, good news is there's much more to explore.
Do you think there's any benefit for students to be more curious about the administrative side of like how this university exists and functions? Like,
I think the students are, and at risk of saying this live on a podcast, I don't think they have enough opportunity to learn more about how the university operates. Okay. One thing that I've kind of learned in my both in my MBA classes here and also just from my experience, working 6 years at UCSD, is I would love to. I try to encourage folks to be as transparent as possible, and of course, I lead with that because I can't just expect people to do that without doing it myself. But I think students are curious, and I would love to see, I think if they were given more of an opportunity to be able to learn about the university, whether that's through maybe a different form of content. So maybe, a lot of the students are Gen Z now, so maybe more content that's geared toward Gen Z folks, or maybe some like maybe an open house or something like that. Like I think people are generally curious. Like if you're here all the time, like you're probably really curious as to how does it, how did I get a desk in front of me? How did I get a professor on the stage, right? And these are also like really smart students, and they want to know how things work. So I think they are curious, and I'd love to see them get more opportunities to peek behind the curtain, like you were saying before.
What's funny is I've been with OSI now for 6-7 years, and there's like, I feel like I know a lot more, obviously, about what the campus is and does than I did as a student. But I still feel like I've even only scratched the surface in terms of like all of the things.
You're still running around the campus trying to open some doors.
I'm always, I literally am. I'm like, hey, did that? No, that's cool.
Yeah.
No, but like it makes me think about how that might be undertaken in terms of like how to really make that happen.
Yeah.
Because there's still so much about the campus that I don't know. Like I said at the onset, I go into a project and sometimes the fear in me is just I have no idea what this team does.
Yeah.
And part of the fun, I think, for me is I'm going to go learn.
Yeah.
Right? It's that sort of continuous improvement of myself, of continuing to learn more about what they do.
Yeah.
So this has been great. Hopefully everyone found this, some people found this interesting. As we mentioned at the onset, this is a little bit of an experiment. So if you enjoy this, we invite you to, drop us a line via email. I'm sound like
slide into Tony's DMs.
I'm super old. I'm dating myself now. We'll either do something in the chat or in the comments or
A1 Nava at UCSD. No,
oh gosh, no.
A1 Nava at UCSD.edu.
Guess what I'm editing out now?
Yeah, that. If you have any complaints, A1 Nava. If you want to give good feedback, SR Savini at UCSD.edu.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Thank you very much.
Bye.